Listeners, if you're a regular to this show, you know that without any fanfare, we take these opening moments to just kind of ease you in. Sometimes we tell a little anecdote, sometimes we make a wry observation, and sometimes when Janine is just champing at the bit to bring us in, we just cue up the interlude music and press play so we can welcome you to the Back Nine.
This is the Back Nine with Dennis Williams and Josh Mora.
You know, Dennis, I really like our intro music. I like Janine's voice over the intro music. It just sets up nicely for a good show, doesn't it?
It does. And of course, your deep baritone voice does too, as well.
That was a pretty good imitation. Not bad.
No.
I like your shirt almost as much as you like my voice. Actually,
you know
I like your shirt a lot.
Orange. I like orange.
It's a tangerine color, almost like a Tennessee orange shirt, which would make sense because it's a Kenny Chesney shirt, and he's from Knoxville, which is where UT is.
Tennessee, yeah. Yep. And I'm wearing a shirt because it's from the last tour, but my daughter is on the Blue Chair Bay Rum bus currently touring with Kenny Chesney.
What is that bus?
The Blue Chair Bay Rum is his rum that sponsors the whole tour. They take that bus around to every location, and then they also do like little events before and after all around in different places around where the concert's going to be. And his concert tour is centered around stadiums. Like he sells out 60, 70,000 person stadiums. In fact, it ends in Foxborough, and he does 3 sold out shows at Gillette in a row. So it's pretty epic. He's with Zach Brown Band this time.
Fantastic, yeah.
Uncle Cracker, and Megan Maroney. So it's like
that's a nice,
it's a nice little lineup. Yeah. So it's always good. It's always fun. It's basically a festival of fun.
Yeah. You know, if I saw a show at Gillette last summer. I saw Ed Sheeran there with my daughter. What is your daughter doing on tour on the bus? What does she do?
Well, she's marketing with Blue Chair Bay Rum. So they're like hanging out with the VIPs and doing everything to promote the brand, both at the venue and backstage.
Nice.
She actually goes out before the show starts and chucks T-shirts in the audience. But yeah, so all good stuff. Yeah,
that sounds like fun.
Really
well, the shirt, it's showing you off. You've been in the gym. It's clear to see.
Well, and nothing like the guy who's going to join us now. Cliff Moitt is our guest. He's a fitness professional and mindset coach. And yeah, I probably get my ass kicked in the gym with him. But nice to have you on, Cliff. Thank you very much.
It's not true. You probably throw up. Okay, let's be real. You're going to
maybe twice.
Maybe twice. Yeah.
I probably would.
I'll give him a napkin.
No, I have
and then keep going. Let's go.
Yeah. I love your hat. It says better than before.
Better than before. That's what it's all about.
That sounds like a Back Nine mantra. That should be our motto.
Everyone should have this mantra.
Yeah. So, Cliff, you have an extraordinary background, and it's great to have you on the show. So let's start with telling our listeners a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Okay, so from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, just Cliff Note version.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
We're fitness
Remember
that intended.
Hey, do you remember
the
that
Cliff Note version?
Yellow book with the little black. Oh God, I hated those. Anyway, so I grew up in the Bronx, New York, and I went to Catholic school because my parents at the time did not want me to go to public school because at one point they thought they were going to get my butt kicked from somebody. Little did they know that the priest and the nuns had a good left and right hook. It was amazing. Growing up in the 70s was amazing. So from there, I went to high school, ran track. I was always into fitness, but I wasn't always into fitness because I was a severe asthmatic. There was a show with John Travolta in the 70s called Bubble Boy. Oh, yeah. That was me. That was me maybe in first grade, kindergarten. I was always in the hospital. I couldn't breathe, had asthma. And one day, as a kid, I was always hanging out with my older brother. We were playing freeze tag and all the other stuff. And I said, I got to do this. This is way too much fun for me. And from then on, I just continued. Went to school for computer science. Absolutely hated it. It was hilarious. I just still remember just sitting there. And I'm like, why am I here? Yeah. I knew there was something bigger for me to do. But if it was free, hey, I had a little track scholarship. Let's go. Let's do it. And then I hit a little depression because I didn't know what to do because I just said, this is not for me. This computer stuff, I love it, and I still do it today. But I didn't want to make it a career. I didn't want to sit down. So my best friend said jokingly, he said, why don't you do that fitness stuff? You're always training people in the gym. And I said, So I went back to school, got my certifications, but I didn't want to be a regular trainer. I knew that I wanted to be also an educator. I knew I wanted to change lives. I knew that there was more out there that people wanted to know. So sure enough, I worked my way up and I became a fitness director and I trained celebrities, you name it, artists, music artists, SWAT teams, special forces, you name it. I've done it all. I was a paramedic also. I was a surgical assistant. I was a part of the whole 9/11 situation. That's when I tapped out. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of here. So I moved down here to Florida. And then from there, I'm down here in Florida since 2002. And what's interesting is that the culture down here is different, right? How people operate down here is different. And I think every state, everyone is just working on how to get through it. And people don't talk about it, but I see that. So throughout that time being down here and understanding people's personalities and how they operate, I knew there was more for me to give to them. So I became a hypnotherapist, go to sleep. I also am a certified firewalker instructor, did a lot of self-development. And the reason why I had to go through it myself, only because it's relatable when you have that conversation, especially with men. Men don't talk about this stuff, but I will. I promise you, I will extract it in a way you're like, oh man, I can't believe that. So
as part of the training, you mean?
That is part of the training, because when someone says, hey, I want to lose weight, I want to get fit or whatever it is, I'm like, no, you don't. What's really going on? What's the pain that you're feeling? When you understand the pain, you understand how you operate. When you understand how you operate, you could change, you make choices, you're aware. So it's a happy medium to know that you have a inner child wound that's still affecting you as an adult. And that's where it all comes down to, right? If we understand that from 0 to 7, 7 to 14, and 14 to 21, we had some type of trauma. And based on that trauma is how we operate to this day, subconsciously and consciously, and we have no idea what we do. That's the real art of it. Once we could tweak that, once we understand how we operate, for men, and I say this for men because we're hurting, and I'm going to call it out. Men, we are hurting, and that's okay. If we understand why we're hurting, then I think the world will change. A lot of things that's happening in this world is happening to men. Don't get me wrong. There's no disrespect to women because they are powerhouses and we love them. But the thing is, I've seen the shift in men where no one is talking about it. No one is crying. No one's feeling any emotion about it. And the thing is that we turn that emotion into an addiction. And there's 4 addictions that every man goes through. I don't care who you are. If you're going to say no, I'm going to say you're lying. You're full of it. It's either work, it's either porn, it's either drugs, or it's either alcohol. Boom, the end. And if we understand that these things that are coming towards us and attacking us, we don't have the right armor to defend ourselves. And in order to get there, we have to understand who we are and how we operate to create that armor. And to understand who we are, we have to understand our generation. We have to understand how my mom and dad operated. We have to understand how their mom and dad operated. And then we start to make decisions. We start to see the patterns. I'm going to tell you, my son called me and he was going through it. This was last night. He was just going through it. He got a new job and he's just working a lot and he's stressed. He's just stressed. And he's like, Dad, I don't know if this is what I want to do. I said, and? What's the problem? He said, well, the money's good, but I don't know, it's just a lot of work. I said, when's the last time you worked hard? He said, I don't know. I said, well, think about school. You were good in school, right? He said, yeah. You're just changing the energy. The thing is that we have 4 kids. I'm happily married. We have 4 kids. And we tell each kid that we want you to fail. Mm-hmm. Hands down, I want you to fail. I want you to screw it up. Because the only way that you're going to learn is through that. There's 2 ways that people learn. Mm-hmm. They learn either through experience or through other people. That's why you call siblings, right? You can tell the siblings who's learning from each. But it's important that if you live your life that everything is good, there's a problem there.
So when people come to you, when men come to you to say, Cliff, I'm interested in changing my body. I want to start a workout regimen. How do you get that point that you've just explained to us so articulately and with such detail to help them understand, well, we can do that. But if you really want to see progress, we have to do all of these other things. How do you get them to buy into that and recognize that's a step that they need to take in order to accomplish all of their goals and objectives and make them stick?
That's a great question. The question is this, is that how far down the rabbit hole they're willing to go, right? Not everyone is my client. Not everyone I could coach or train. I'm not the guy who takes everybody in. If you know what you need, then how far are you willing to go? So the first thing I tell them, I say, okay, well, and I remember this, it was a CEO, and he wanted to train with me. I said, okay, give me 22 reasons why. Write it down and call me back. And he was like, what? I'm like, yeah, write down 22 reasons why this is important and call me back. He called me back like 4 days later. And he said, I don't know why. I said, listen, I just want to read the last 3. Because it's funny, when we write things down, the first couple of things is just things that we want to write. When you start to write even deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, it starts to peel the onion. And then you start to find the real truth, why you want certain things in your life. And that's where it starts. Because they're going to realize that, hey, I'm not that guy who counts reps. Now, granted, there are fitness professionals who are excellent at that. I'm not that guy. I'm 52 years old. I've been through the ringer. I know exactly what men need. And they need to have this conversation to say, hey, I may be going through a midlife crisis. No, you're not. You're not going through a midlife crisis. Did you check your blood work? It's probably your hormones, brother. Your testosterone was low. Just get your blood work and come back to me with that. All right? So that's the end of it all for me. I mean, I don't like to be stressed because all it does is creates inflammation. Mm-hmm. And you can't operate right, you can't sleep right, and then it affects your house and it affects your work, and then everyone hates you.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that you're not for everybody, because I kind of feel that way about this show. Like, we talk about the back nine, and we recognize that we'd like it to be. We'd like people to be open-minded about the things you're talking about, being introspective, being vulnerable, being all those things that guys are taught not to be. That's really what this show's about. It's kind of what you do, right? Like, you're really trying to dig deep. Not everybody can do that. We'd like to think they can, but they can't. Have you had, give me a story, because there's probably people listening right now that are like, I'm not that guy. How do you break through?
It's not really a breakthrough. When someone says that I'm not that guy, they are that guy. Anytime when we start to deny ourselves of the truth, we come up with excuses. And some people may say, well, when I used to train the special forces, like those guys are those dudes are hard, straight up hard. But I'm thinking they're only hard because they were trained to be hard. How are they at home? How are they when they're off? Or like, how do they operate? So when you're in a situation and you say to yourself, I'm not that guy, ask yourself, why? Well, because that's for girls, man. I don't need to show emotions. But why? You see, when we end up being 4 or 5 years old and ask the questions over and over and over again, we start to get the answers. And sometimes the real truth is that we don't want to know the answer. We know the truth, but we don't want to know it, right? Because that creates a sense of feeling, a sense of, oh my God, yeah, I understand it. And remember that movie Beaches? With the Bette Midler.
Yeah.
See, this is showing my age. I remember there was a training that I went to, and they played the movie, right? All the dudes were crying at the end. Mm-hmm. Everyone was just crying. I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. Even me. It wasn't the snot cry, but it was enough that the lip quiver.
Your throat gets all closed up.
When it gets all closed up, that's the level when you say to yourself, okay, how much emotion am I holding in?
Yeah.
That's the key.
We'll be right back. Listeners, you know I've been talking about Pete Learning for a few weeks now. Pete is an out-of-the-box training department that helps companies of all sizes reach their company training initiatives. So picture this. Your company leaders hold all kinds of institutional knowledge, but it takes time for them to create and manage the training that it takes to share that knowledge and other company objectives with their employees. And that's time away from what those leaders do best. That is where Pete comes in. Pete uses artificial intelligence, AI, to create robust, threaded training curriculum quickly and inexpensively. Put simply, Pete is an indispensable partner for any growing company. It is win-win at every level. So visit Pete Learning at pete.com. That is PETE.com.
If you need a benefit auctioneer for your next fundraising gala, hire Eric Goodman, who's broken fundraising records all over the country. Josh and I have known Eric for over 30 years, and he's one of the most passionate, energetic, and hardworking people we know. Eric's consulting strategies and successful fundraising techniques is why he raised $1 million in 10 minutes at a recent event. Visit yourfundraisingteam.com to see a video of his work, testimonials, and then book with Eric today so your nonprofit can have a record-breaking night.
All right, back to the show. So when you're taking someone through one of your trainings, right, which is a workout, right? There's weightlifting, there's stretching, there's all the stuff. How is it different? So, and how does somebody then do it on their own? Or are they meeting with you once a week? And what do you prescribe for them when they're at the gym doing their own work? How is it different from going in, doing 7 sets on your biceps and triceps?
Correct. Well, there's something that I talk about, which is called the switch. And the switch is when, for example, we go to a conference or a meeting and you learn so much. And then after 2 days of going to the conference and meeting, we completely forget about it, right? You see, the thing is that everyone has a superpower, all 3 of us. And our superpower is that most people are in the dark. And when they're in the dark, we're in the dark with them. And we have a flashlight. And we take the flashlight and we point it to the switch to turn the light on. The issue is that when people leave us or people leave the conferences or meetings or whatever they're learning, they automatically turn the light off. The thing is that what we have to teach them is that when we're pointing the flashlight to the switch, they have to turn it on themselves, not by my flashlight. I'm just showing you exactly where it is. I just need you to flick it up. So when we have these conversations while we're training or before we're trained, there's homework because anyone could do reps, anyone could work out and all that. That's the easy part. The hard part is the other hours that you don't see me.
Right.
That's the hard part. The food, right? The stress, the life, right? That's the hard part. How to be a better father, how to be a better husband, how to be a better coworker or owner, how to be a better golfer.
How to be a better man.
How to be a better man. But again, if we don't have the tools, if we don't have the armor, what book are we reading?
Right.
Right? We're only reading the books of trauma. And that's the deep one. We are reading our own book of trauma and we're trying to get through it. That's not fair.
Is there an age that you look back at? Because I've been very introspective about this too, about like looking back at my childhood and trying to pick out certain times in my life when I was influenced a certain way and why I act this way and why I act that way. You mentioned a big age range. Is there one that you really narrow in on? If people are listening right now and they're thinking, I need to think about like how I was or how I was raised at that particular time or something, are there moments that you focus on or is it different for everybody?
Well, there's 2 things that drives people insane, especially men and women. We either dwell on the past or worry about the future. Again, we dwell on the past or we worry about the future. And I used to always think about what if I was to change something? What if I was to do something different? What if I was to blah, 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 all this stuff, right? I don't think that anymore. But I do know there was a time where I got divorced the first time. And I realized that if I had the tools, I could have been a better husband, you know, if I had the tools. And I think a lot of men don't understand that part. It doesn't matter if the person's right or wrong. This is not about right or wrong. This is about what was the lesson you had to learn about it, right? Once you understand the lesson, then things start to shift. You start to understand. You start to relate. And I knew through the first round of marriage that I just didn't have the tools. And the reason why I didn't have the tools is because my dad didn't have a dad, right? So again, remember going back, if you don't know the generational trauma throughout, then you wouldn't know what book to really read. You're just grasping on the wrong straws.
Yeah, I think you're honest. I know you're onto something. The idea that men, after we go through formal school, whether that ends at high school or college or an advanced degree or whatever it is, we think we've learned everything we need to know. We don't tap into the other learning that we need to do socially, culturally, as we age, right? That's partly why you're here, is to talk about this. So what does it look like on the other side of it when you've exposed men to the opportunities that they might find in tools, some of the tools that you think would be valuable for them, for us, and they've been through the program at least for a little bit? What are some of the results that they see that, and maybe you can describe a couple of stories that have been, or one story that's been particularly transformative in your mind?
Well, it comes down to freedom, right? Everyone wants to have some sort of freedom. And when we get that freedom, we have that power. When we really generate that power that we're making a decision, things start to get light. Things are heavy. If you really think about the life expectancy of a man, it's not really that long. It's just not. Why? And most men have heart issues. Why is that? Well, because we take things to heart and we keep it in. That's how deep it goes emotionally. Like you could have so much pain and guilt, and the number one killer is shame, right? That's how I think. The number one killer for any man is shame. If we keep all that emotional in, what do you think your body's going to do? Right? So sure enough, you get a heart attack. You have all this other heart issues. You take your freaking Plavix and all this
you eat too much, you drink too much,
Correct.
You do all those things.
You're trying to
self-medicate.
sedate yourself from reality.
Right.
One thing that I've learned with my clients is that they laugh more. And that, you guys are laughing right now.
We love to laugh, so I love to laugh.
Laughing is one thing that is underrated, underestimated, and undeveloped.
I have a great point about that. I heard this today, and I think it's a really good, you'll love this. I was talking to a woman, it was a business conversation, and it sort of sidetracked into, like, she was talking about her upbringing being very, very difficult, very tough. And what she would do to, rather than medicate on bad stuff, she would watch stand-up comedy. And now she's practicing as a 40-something-year-old to be a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that is the quintessential thing to do. If laughter is truly the best medicine. If you can literally go, if you're struggling, it's a great outlet. And we talk about meditation, but a great outlet for me when I was going through all of my stuff with my divorce and my trauma and my breakups and all of that stuff. My medication was stand-up comedy. Sebastian Maniscalco got me through it. Nate Bargatze, like all of those stand-up comics. It seems silly, but it really is. Or a funny movie, or watching Ted Lasso, or whatever it is, right? Like those kinds of things can really help you because it is the best medicine.
You nailed it. I've been married now for 18 years, and my wife to this day, she sometimes gets annoyed by me because when I go to bed, I don't really watch too much stuff. I watch my reels, but I watch funny reels, and I'm laughing by myself, just tears. And she's like, "Really?"
We send Frenchie videos to each other that are hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Silly Frenchie dog videos.
Because what it does is the subconscious mind starts to take it in. And why watch CNN, Fox, and all these other things that is putting all this negative powder into your head? Rather, if you find something funny, it gives you a little endorphin boost and you can fall asleep. Take that with some melatonin, everyone's happy.
Yep. Right? Well, all that energy, political shows, whatever it may be, there's so much anger, right? There's the other and demonizing the other. And what we've talked about on this show many times is the importance of community and positive energy, lighter energy, rather than all of that toxicity. So is that part of how do you get your clients to that point too, where they are now they're doing physical workouts and you're training them to because you're training a lot of like chief executive officers and C-level people who have to be very serious about their businesses. How do you get them to identify with lighter energy?
Small wins. That's it. I said, what's your small win today?
That's good.
And they're like, well,
Really good.
I don't have it. I said, find one. You have small one. Did you wake up? Yep. Did you make your bed? Yep. Small wins. What else? See, when we focus on small wins, it's just being grateful. It's the things that we don't know. Like right in front of me is a glass of water. I'm like, God, I'm grateful to have water.
Right.
You have no idea compared to other countries out there. So it's about being present and being grateful while you're in that moment. That I call it the calm before the chaos. So you just got to be calm and like, okay, you know what? I'm grateful that I'm here with you guys. I'm grateful that I have a shirt on my back. I'm just grateful. And those are the small wins. Forget about everything else because bad news always travels fast, no matter how you look at it. No one talks about the good news. That's why when you watch the news, it's maybe about, 3 minutes of good news?
Oh, yeah. Brutal.
Right?
Brutal.
What's going on here?
What was that the line that bad news and lies circle the world while good news and the truth are just lacing up their shoes?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, we are really grateful to have had you on the show. This has been terrific. We could spend hours with you, but thank you so much for your time and your energy. And you really fit this show. You could host this show, frankly, the Back Nine, because you have so many insights about the Back Nine. You can
Dennis, I'm under contract. You can't.
You
can't replace me.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
right. You're right. If one of us is ever calls in sick, you're
there. You go.
You're the replacement. We'd love to have you.
Hey, you heard it first.
But thank you so much again. We talk about the serendipity of meeting people at a certain time and the way we ran into each other randomly and the energy right away between the connection on our podcast and what you were doing was literally instantaneous. And I'm so grateful that you've been a part of this show.
Listen, you guys are doing great things, and I appreciate you both. I mean, you have no idea where this is going to go for the both of you. And I'm like one of your biggest cheerleaders. I'm really happy for you both.
For that. Appreciate you so much.
Man.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Thanks.
We reciprocate that too.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Well, there it is. Great guest.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, one of the mic drops over and over again.
I love the holistic approach to weightlifting. I mean, in thinking about or exercising or whatever the fitness is, it could be running, it could be being on a bike or whatever it might be. And I love the idea of small wins. And it reminds me, I was in this practice for a little while, a couple of years ago, of trying to find the top 3 things in your day. What were the best 3 things in your day? And it's amazing how when you actually stop to think about that, even when you think you've had a hard day, if you stop and pause, there's always 3 things that you can find that make you say, yeah, those 3 things were good.
Yeah, I mean, the gratitude is often talked about, but some people have to dig really deep. I mean, just the glass of water in front of you, I wanted an energy drink when I came into whatever it is, right? Like, be grateful that we're doing this show right now. So, it's all of that. But I think the biggest thing I got out of it was figuring out how to make guys like vulnerable enough to understand where the pain comes from, why they are who they are, which is what we've really set out to do in this show, is to create a community of men who are willing to say, this is why I'm like this. It's not somebody else's fault. I'm like this because these things happen to me and I can fix it. Like that's what it is. There are tools at my disposal to fix the traumas or the things that happen to me whenever they happened.
And what's interesting about that is that's a relatively new concept for guys, but that can be applied through something with which they are familiar, which is the pursuit of fitness, right? And being in a gym or being on a bike or being on a run or whatever it is. And that on the other side of it, what the aspirational goal is freedom. Right? It's liberation. Right. It's liberation from all of that trauma. It's the freedom to be who we are in our true spiritual selves. And I love that idea. And I had never thought about putting those 2 elements together, even as I pursued them separately. But I guarantee you that when I work out tomorrow, that is going to be front and center in my mind.
And my final thought is this. Who are you when people aren't watching? When the flashlight isn't on, right? Who are you? Do you put the light, do you put that spotlight on yourself, or are you a different person? So that I got a lot out of that. Who are you when people aren't watching?
That's the definition of integrity.
Right. And then I'll leave you with one more thing. I'll challenge our audience on a movie that if you don't cry at this movie, then you are don't have any feeling. Do you ever see The Champ? The movie The Champ?
With little Ricky Schroeder when
and
he was
John Voight.
Oh my God.
It's the saddest movie of all time. I think the first movie I ever cried at, I was 9 years old.
Yes.
I just looked it up. It was 1979. The Champ is, the end of that movie is, if you don't cry at that movie, you literally have no feelings. I think everybody I've ever seen, the hardest core dude, would cry at that movie.
I was thinking about that
right?
last week. It's so amazing. I haven't
really?
thought about that movie in 20 years.
I didn't think about it until you brought up sad movies. I was like, what movie hit me when I was a kid? And I was like, The Champ.
Yeah, The Champ.
Right?
Yes. I teared up at Field of Dreams, too, but for different reasons at the end. But, you know.
Well, this has been a great show.
Yeah.
And
lots to take away.
Lots to take away. And I hope you took away a lot from this show. And I hope you'll join us again next time on The Back Nine.
Hey, listeners, we just wanted to thank you for being a part of our community to date. We love the feedback you've given us to this point as we continue to build The Back Nine above and beyond what we're already doing.
Yeah, help us by following, subscribing, and or downloading and sharing with your friends and family as well. We have lots of plans for how we can continue to provide good perspective and fantastic resources for all of you. So join us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your preferred platform, and know that we are incredibly grateful for your support.
Yeah, we are. We look forward to seeing you in person soon, hint, hint, and knowing that you're out there making the loop with us every week on The Back Nine.
Three Bridges is proud to be a sponsor of The Back Nine. My business partner and I founded the company in 2019 with the simple premise that we wanted to be the best storytellers for your brand. Let's be real here. We say bring your brand to life because if you don't have video, your brand is either dead or dying. We recently completed a project with a huge resort out in Colorado Springs called Garden of the Gods. We produced multiple videos that I am personally very proud of, and more importantly, they are thrilled with them. If you want to see our work, check out 3 Bridges Consulting on our YouTube page. That's the number 3 Bridges Consulting on YouTube, and see how we can breathe life into your brand.
The Back Nine is flawlessly constructed by Janine Stella and recorded at Pixelworks Studios in Delray Beach, Florida.